Project-based lending is a different type of lending, and it's a method of cash flow lending which is based on the future or expected cash flows of a specific project or activity that is being financed. So it's based on the cash flows of a specific ring-fenced project or activity. Now, there may be collateral, but the collateral is of a secondary consideration, and the primary consideration is the viability and the cash flows associated with the primary project. Now, with really large transactions, this is sometimes referred to as project or infrastructure finance. And you'll see on Mr. Mac, we've got a separate dedicated module on that. And in this case, a lot of the lending is frequently referred to as limited recourse or non-recourse lending. What does that mean? That means if the project does not generate enough funds to pay off the loan, the bank can only attach the assets related to the specific project. It's ring-fenced. The bank cannot go to the other assets of the lender. They are limited to the assets of the project that is being funded. That is project-based lending. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of project-based lending? Let's start with the advantages. One, it's very appropriate because the repayment schedule is based on the cash flows of the underlying project. So you can match the repayment schedule with the cash flows that the project generates. The second advantage is that with new and start-up projects without a historical track record, it makes them much more viable to raise funding from the financial institutions despite the fact that they do not have a previous track record. The last advantage or observation is that this type of lending is best suited to projects or ventures that can be ring-fenced, that can be isolated from the main operations of a particular organization. Some of the disadvantages of project-based lending: it's highly vulnerable to a diversion of the loan proceeds by the borrower. What does that mean? The borrower says, I'm going to take this money, borrow it from the bank, and use it for this specific project. But they take the money and they use it for something else that's not agreed upon. So the bank is quite vulnerable in terms of that diversion of funds. Secondly, obviously, the loan or the advance the bank makes would be vulnerable to specific project risks. So if that project has got lots of risk related to it, or the risks materialize and the project is not successful, the lender is exposed directly to those project risks, which may crystallize into that project being unable to service the loan obligations. The last disadvantage is that frequently this type of lending requires elaborate analysis of feasibility and viability, and that can take a long time before a decision is made as to whether to extend funds or not to extend funds.